This episode contains graphic content that may not be suitable for all ages. Listener discretion is advised. If you or someone you know is struggling or in crisis, help is available. Call or text 988 or chat with someone at 988lifeline.org. Those outside of the US, reach out to someone at your local crisis center or hotline. Please do not suffer in silence. In December of 2021, the world was worried about the spread of a new COVID-19 variant. On the borders of Ukraine, the Russian army would begin mobilizing forces ahead of their invasion just weeks later. In Germany, Olaf Scholz replaced Angela Merkel as the nation's chancellor. Here in America, a rare string of tornadoes would tear through 4 states, destroying multiple towns and leaving at least 70 dead. While the rest of the world was preoccupied, a tragic story was unfolding in San Antonio, Texas. A 3-year-old girl disappeared from just outside of her family's home and has not been seen since. This is the story of Lina Sardar Khil. Lina Sardar Khil was born in Afghanistan to her parents, Riaz and Zarmina Sardar Khil, in the Khost province. Her grandfather was an Afghan military commander that was killed by a suicide bomber in 2009, and her father, Riaz, had followed in his father's footsteps by serving in Afghanistan's armed forces between 2013 and 19. There, he worked alongside US troops and served as a team leader for the nation's security forces, a job he has described as primarily a desk job involving a lot of paperwork, but one that put a target on his and his family's back. In 2019, the family would obtain visas and relocate from their home nation, Afghanistan, to the United States. Riaz Sardar Khil would later tell KENS5, a CBS affiliate in the San Antonio region, that the family fled from threats that were posed to us. As reported by that station and some other outlets, Riaz had received specific threats from the Taliban, who were poised to regain power at the time his family and he legally immigrated to the United States. Settling upon the San Antonio region of Texas, the Khil family moved into an apartment complex along the 9400 block of Fredericksburg Road in San Antonio, located in the medical center part of town. There, the 3 lived in the Villas del Cabo apartments, not too far away from where I-10 and Northwest Loop 410 intersect in northwest San Antonio. This was a neighborhood settled by many Afghan refugees over several years who had begun to develop a close-knit community since relocating to the US. Many had fled violence in their home country. Riaz, a native Pashtun speaker, would later tell the San Antonio Express News through a translator, "We came from a horrible place with the hope of a better life." Beginning work as a driver for Uber and Lyft, Riaz began driving trucks to support his family, while his wife, Zarmina, became a stay-at-home wife for their eldest, Lina, as well as their second child, a little boy that was born in America. By the summer of 2021, she would become pregnant with the couple's 3rd child, another boy. The family was still getting used to their new home in America, but they would make one final trip back over to Afghanistan that year. Riaz, for safety reasons, did not go, but Zarmina would take the children to see her sick parents in Afghanistan before the Taliban seized control of the local government. That August, the US began to suddenly withdraw from Afghanistan, living up to an agreement made by US President Donald Trump the year beforehand. But as this sudden withdrawal took place, thousands flocked to the airport in Kabul, where they attempted to gain passage on one of the final planes out of the country. Zarmina, Lina, and Lina's baby brother were among them when a suicide bomber detonated an explosive belt just outside of the airport's gates, killing more than 100 Afghans and 13 US soldiers. Little Lina was among those wounded, knocked unconscious by the blast that had killed or wounded hundreds of others. But thankfully she was able to quickly regain consciousness and fled with her mother and brother to a family member's home nearby. They were later evacuated by US officials shortly thereafter, reunited with Riaz back in Texas. Despite the close call with tragedy that the Khil family faced that August, things soon returned to relative normalcy in San Antonio. Lina, just 3 years old, was beginning to grow into her personality, her family describing her as a goofy, silly kid that enjoyed to play, watch YouTube videos, and help take care of her younger brother. She also enjoyed playing with the other kids that lived in her apartment complex, something that she would do almost every single day. On the afternoon of Monday, December 20th, 2021, 3-year-old Lena was taken outside by her mother to the apartment complex's courtyard playground, where numerous other families were out and about. This was a nearly daily occurrence for the family. Lena would join the other kids running and goofing around while her mother, Zarmina, sat in the central common area with the other caretakers, many of whom were mothers and others from the local Afghan community. 4 months pregnant at the time with her third child, Zarmina would try and keep an eye on Lena and her little brother as they milled about the small playground, often running around the courtyard and the various apartment buildings with other kids. At around 5 p.m., Zarmina would lose sight of Lena for a short period of time. Early reports would claim that she went back into the family's apartment for a bottle of water, but later reports would claim that Lena was running around with kids and ran around a nearby building, just out of sight. However, when the rest of the kids showed up on the other side of the building, Lena was no longer with them. It's hard to tell what of this is due to the language barrier, with the Sardar Khil family speaking Pashtun. Regardless, this official police report would later state that at around 5:40 p.m., Lena's mother took her eyes off Lena for a short period of time and was unable to find her again. When Lena failed to materialize, Zarmina assumed that she had gone back to the family's apartment and would search for her there. Unable to find her, she had to hope that Lena had gone to the home of another Afghan family and would contact her husband, Riaz, to help her find their daughter. Riaz was about a mile away at the time, visiting with a friend, and he raced back home to help search for Lena. But as minutes passed without being able to locate her, they began to fear the worst. Riaz would later tell the San Antonio Express News through a translator. "When nobody called and said, 'I have Lena,' then I thought that somebody must have abducted or kidnapped her." The family would call police at around 7:15 p.m., a little more than an hour and a half after Lena had gone missing from outside the apartment complex. Police would arrive and begin searching the entire complex that evening, doing so for the next few days afterward. An Amber Alert was issued for Lena at around 10 p.m., informing the public of Lena's description as well as the location she had disappeared from, right off of Fredericksburg Road. In that Amber Alert, authorities were unable to state that Lena had been abducted, but believed that she was in grave or immediate danger. Estimates put 3-year-old Lena at roughly 4 feet tall and weighing approximately 55 pounds, with straight, shoulder-length brown hair that was in a ponytail at the time of her disappearance. She had been dressed in a recognizable red dress, along with a black jacket and black shoes. Here is Detective Jeremy Voles, the lead detective in the case, from a video posted online by the San Antonio Police Department.
Immediately when we received the call, and there was a lot of resources that went to the scene that night, including calling in our federal partners with the FBI who made the scene. That night, a lot of people went door to door in the complex looking for her, talking to people that we could talk to see if anyone saw anything. There was hundreds of SAPD officers, detectives, FBI agents that were on scene, continuing to look for her, continuing going door to door, and then expanding our search into the neighboring apartment complex. We were able to retrieve surveillance video from a resident at that apartment complex. The video overlooked the playground in the complex where many of the children were playing that day. That video did capture Lena playing on the playground. She was with her mother and her younger brother. At some point during the video, she walked off the screen, and that was the last sighting that we have of her on video.
In the days ahead, the SAPD would lead the charge in trying to locate the missing 3-year-old, expanding their search out from the apartment complex itself into the surrounding area, deploying K-9 teams to try and locate Lena's scent. They would go door to door in the apartment complex, searching for any sign of her in closets, cars, and dumpsters. Police could be seen writing down the license plate numbers of residents and others in the region, as well as searching for surveillance videos from local businesses, even doorbell cameras from local residents. Authorities would treat this as a missing persons case with several persons of interest, but were unable to find any specific signs of foul play. This would lead to some discrepancies about whether or not they believed this to be an abduction, but we'll touch on that some more in a bit. Early on, San Antonio Police Chief William McManus was a regular presence in this case, speaking to the media and the public on multiple occasions. Early on, he would tell local CBS affiliate KENS5. The beginning hours, the beginning moments of her going missing, we started fast. We had resources on the scene from the Federal Bureau of Investigations. We checked everywhere. We checked dumpsters, we checked closets. We searched every single apartment in the complex, some more than once. We had cadaver dogs going through that apartment complex. The day after Lena's disappearance, Tuesday, December 21st, her parents were questioned extensively by detectives. Meanwhile, officers continued to search through the area surrounding the complex, interviewing residents that were both coming and going. Many were asked if they would be willing to let officers search their homes and vehicles, and were asked to provide an alibi for their whereabouts the prior afternoon and evening. Families that had been at the playground that Monday afternoon were asked to describe anything or anyone they had seen near the apartment complex that day. Search parties were organized to prowl through the wooded area near the apartment complex, and a helicopter would scan things from above. Unfortunately, though, authorities and volunteers were unable to locate any trace of the missing girl, with San Antonio Police Chief William McManus admitting 2 days after Lena's disappearance. The longer the time elapses, the less hopeful we become. Chief McManus would request the FBI's help, asking them to deploy their child abduction rapid response team to help aid in Lena's recovery. Meanwhile, Lena's father Riaz would become the family's point person in the media, speaking to them on multiple occasions, always accompanied with a translator, because he is a native Pashto speaker with a rough understanding of English. In one of his first interviews, he breaks down in tears when asked what he missed most about Lena. As someone with a daughter the same age, I found this really hard to watch, and I can't even imagine what he and his family have had to endure. Thankfully, the community that the Sardar Khil family had settled into was there to help support them during this difficult time, providing Riaz and his wife with resources they might not have had otherwise. Through the support network, they were able to establish a reward fund for information leading authorities to Lena, which started out at $75,000 but quickly grew, combined with a $50,000 reward offered up by the Crime Stoppers of San Antonio. This reward would eventually grow to over $250,000, $250,000, primarily due to money offered up by the Islamic Center of San Antonio. A week after Lena's disappearance, on December 28th, Chief McManus would speak to the press alongside Justin Garris, the acting FBI special agent in charge of the San Antonio field office. Together, they would outline the status of the investigation.
We continue to get leads. We continue to go over social media posts, seeing if we can't come up with anything that might lead us to where Lena might be or what might have happened to her. Right now, we have a K-9 teams that are out looking for her right now. They're running the green belts between here and the and 410, and hopefully maybe we'll come up with something. But we continue to interview people. We continue to have police officers on scene across the street, but we really have no new updates as to where Lena might be.
Have we been able to glean anything from the video evidence that you've seen so far?
There's information that we try to connect and link to the different video that we have, but again, we have no new leads that would take us to where Lena is or what might have happened to her. But I want to emphasize that we have not lessened the intensity of this investigation. Neither SAPD nor my partner here with the FBI. So.
Are you guys looking at any potential suspects that have been interviewed so far?
I will say that we're looking at some people, yes, but I won't get into it any deeper than that.
So does that mean at this point, is it still being investigated as a missing person?
We're still investigating it as a missing person unless evidence would lead us to believe otherwise.
Since you put a call out, people that being angry and on.
We've got nothing that would, again, that would lead us any closer to where Lena might be or what might have happened to her.
Do you suspect foul play at this point?
Pardon?
Do you suspect foul play at this point?
If we suspected foul play, the investigation would turn. But right now, we don't have enough to lead us in that direction.
I know that the reward money has gone up to $150,000 in general. How many tips, if you had an estimation as far as how many people are stepping in, working together to try to provide y'all whatever you can, do you have like a number of tips?
I don't, but I will tell you though that the calls and the texts, they have not stopped coming in, and I would ask Agent Garris to talk a little bit about that. The FBI, well, I'll let him talk about that.
Hey, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Justin Garris. I'm the acting special agent in charge of the FBI San Antonio field office. Just want to let you know our thoughts and prayers continue to go out to Lena's family, the community, as we continue to support the San Antonio Police Department in what we consider an aggressive investigation and search for Lena. Again, if there's any tips, feedback, information that the public can give to us, we highly encourage that. Currently, the FBI, as I stated last week, we've utilized our child abduction rapid deployment team, behavioral analysis unit, intelligence response teams, forensic examiners, and between San Antonio Police Department and FBI, we've had hundreds of officers and agents searching for Lena. Are there any questions?
Yeah, yesterday morning we saw agents in the evidence response team were out doing dumpsters and the laundromat of the complex.
So SAPD, or San Antonio Police Department, FBI, searched the dumpsters last week. We wanted to do our due diligence again, since the dumpsters were emptied from the time we searched last week till this week. So we wanted to research it and make sure we didn't miss anything. Maybe a potential suspect would have thrown something out, maybe evidence or anything pertinent to the investigation or search effort. So we researched it yesterday.
You know, some people are wondering, obviously, with her being such a small child, 3-year-old, you know, she can't get far. But with that being said, we have so many resources searching for her. You know, what is making it so difficult for you guys, you know, not to locate anything related to her at this time?
So we have a gap right now, and I mentioned it last week, but from 4:49 p.m. last Monday, the 20th, till 5:07, there's an 18-minute window where we had visibility of, where we did not have visibility of Lena. A lot of the tips we've acquired are outside of that 18-minute window. So I would ask the public if they have any information or leads or you know, anything they can provide us during that 18-minute window, that'd be of huge value to the San Antonio Police Department and FBI.
Just one other question about why shut down the command post in Chamber Line, just kind of explaining what went into that decision.
Because the command post activity was focused on the apartment complex and the immediate surrounding area, and we have gone over and over and over that. So there's really no need to have that command post set up here. Everything else right now is being done through telephone, social media, but again, I'll emphasize that there is no lessening of the intensity of this investigation simply because the command posts have shut down. That is the command posts conduct the activity that's going on the scene immediately following the disappearance and up until the point where it would just simply be redundant to keep officers here and agents here on the scene.
Chief, can you tell us why you're searching the green spaces around I-10?
Pardon?
Why are you searching the green spaces?
Because it might lead us to something. We don't want to leave any stone unturned. So we'll continue to go over those areas as we think there may be new evidence.
One more question, guys.
It's been 8 days, just kind of want to gauge the confidence level at this point.
I will say that it's disheartening that we haven't found anything that leads us closer to Lena. There's nothing that we haven't done to try to find her, and it's frustrating and it's disheartening and disappointing that we haven't come up with something yet.
We're going to pause for just a moment to hear a word from the sponsors that support this show. One of the issues that has plagued this story is the discrepancy that exists between cases involving missing persons and those involving abductions. While it may seem like there's a minute difference between the two, it's one of those details that changes how an entire investigation is run. From the beginning, authorities seem to believe that Lina Sardar Khil was in danger, hence them stating as much in the original Amber Alert, that she was in grave or immediate danger. But as their search began to spread out from the apartment complex, officers were unable to find any evidence of foul play, meaning that they could not find any direct evidence of Lina having been physically abducted. Rather, it was as if she had simply disappeared into thin air. As you heard from the press conference audio just a few minutes ago, there was an 18-minute gap in the surveillance footage that authorities could not account for. And based on what they found, they were unable to state definitively that Lina was abducted during this time. This seemingly left the door open to her having disappeared through other means, perhaps wandering off into the woods or something like that. However, it seems like in not choosing to label Lina's disappearance specifically as an abduction, police were able to use more resources to aid in their case. At least, that's what Chief McManus would tell KSAT-5 in 2022, explaining that he had the Missing Persons Unit working on it alongside the Special Victims Unit. As he explained, both units were collaborating with the FBI, with the SVU doing a lot of the groundwork and the Missing Persons Unit coordinating the efforts. Yet it seems like this hybrid approach wasn't any more successful than a regularly run investigation, with Chief McManus telling KSAT-5 in that same interview. It's baffling. I've never come across a case where someone just vanished, and we have no clue, no reports of where she might be or what might have happened to her. I've not come across a case like that. While there remains no specific evidence that Lina Sardar Khil was abducted, that remains the prevailing theory in this case. It also seems like the only plausible explanation, with it being pretty unlikely that she disappeared in the small patches of nearby woods or fell prey to a natural predator or anything like that. In San Antonio, the only real natural predators are coyotes, who are not usually seen in large numbers in that part of town, and would have left behind a lot of physical proof of being there. And considering this was a reasonably warm day with no precipitation, it wasn't like she got swept up into a storm drain or anything like that. However, while abduction remains the prevailing theory in this case, there exist different sub-theories. Some believe that Lina's abduction was likely targeted, while others think that this may have been a random act carried out by someone with no prior connection to Lina or her family. Those who believe her abduction was targeted point out that she would have been more likely to go with someone known to her or her loved ones, someone that she was previously familiar with. Abel Pena, a retired FBI agent that runs Project Absentis, a San Antonio-based missing persons advocacy group, told KENS-5, "I think what we determined is that she did leave voluntarily. She walked away with individuals, but we don't know after that what happened. There were witnesses that saw her, walking with various people throughout the day. I think she walked off with perhaps individuals she knew or at least was familiar with, but there was no indication she was forced or taken away." Pena, who got involved with the case through Project Absentis, helped coordinate the drawing of 2 sketches by Lois Gibson, a renowned artist with the Houston Police Department, spoke directly with a witness that claimed to have seen Lina walking alongside 2 men the afternoon of her disappearance. As far as I know, these sketches have never been released to the public, but they have been described as being of 2 men. One who has been described as a dark-skinned African man, as well as a lighter-skinned man of Afghan complexion. When shown these sketches, Lina's family claimed to recognize the Afghan man, but believed he had nothing to do with Lina's disappearance. However, they were unable to identify the dark-skinned man. While this seems to point to there being some evidence of a targeted abduction, others continue to believe that Lina's disappearance might have been a random, spontaneous act. They cling to this theory because those type of abductions are generally harder to solve, because there is no specific connection tying the abductor to the victim. This is exacerbated when there are no witnesses to the crime, as was the case here. No one seemed to see anyone take Lina away from the apartment complex, so it remains a possibility that someone was sitting in the parking lot that Lina ran through with the other kids, and, while there, simply waited for the other kids to leave before taking advantage of the situation. The Amber Alert for Lina Sardar Khil was discontinued in early January 2022. But the missing persons investigation itself would persevere, spearheaded by the SAPD, who received continued cooperation from the FBI. That month, just a couple of weeks after Lena's disappearance, San Antonio police were seen with an elite FBI dive team, the Underwater Search and Evidence Response Team, at a creek near the apartment complex. This was less than 2 miles from where Lena had gone missing. But even then, authorities cautioned against anyone jumping to conclusions, with Chief McManus telling reporters, "I wish I could be more uplifting. I know this looks like we're really onto something, but all we're doing here is following up." The search conducted by the FBI dive team would conclude without any conclusive findings per their statements, resulting in investigators broadening the grid in the search for 3-year-old Lena, whose 4th birthday was quickly approaching. Police would continue to appeal to the public, asking for anyone with potential information to come forward, no matter how big or small the information seemed. They continued to emphasize the gap in the surveillance footage, which took place between 4:49 and 5:07 p.m. on December 20th, and an SAPD spokesperson would tell ABC News. "Our missing persons unit is working tirelessly at receiving leads and tips on little Lena's case. We will continue to follow every lead, no matter how small, until Lena is located." Sadly, Lena and her family have had to endure many rumors and theories that, quite frankly, are based in little more than racism. While I hate to put such an absolute label on them, it's hard not to. From the beginning of this case, the Khil family struggled to convey their account to the public due to the language barrier. As native Pashto speakers, they were unable to convey things properly to the press, speaking through various translators who, at times, seemed to have their own troubles communicating things in English. This led to the early widespread belief that Lena's mother, Zarmina, just let the 3-year-old run around the apartment complex unsupervised and no one else was around. Then there was the unclear issue of how long she had lost visual contact with Lena, something described as a short time by police. But regardless, this led to many comments about how Lena's mother wasn't doing an adequate job of taking care of her, blaming her, directly or indirectly, for Lena's disappearance. Then there were some of the overtly racist theories that were tossed around online, with some speculating that Lena's family had brokered a deal to sell her off, or had killed her themselves and then set out to cover it up. These commenters would speculate, without any evidence mind you, that Lena had never actually gone outside to play with other kids that day, something that was seemingly put to bed by the SAPD when they released video footage showing that very thing. But that footage was not released until the 1-year mark of the case, leading to many months of harassment and heinous speculation. Other online commenters would wonder why only Riaz, Lena's father, appeared in public. In doing so, they continued to cast doubt upon Lena's mother, who chose not to step in front of the camera because of her cultural and religious beliefs. In 2022, months after her daughter's disappearance, Lina Sardar Khil would tell Fox San Antonio, "We all have the same pain. It doesn't matter that I am from Afghanistan. I have a different culture, different religion. What we have in common is the pain of motherhood, as a human, is the same as all people." This racist behavior started to become an actual threat to Lena's family, who, along with the Afghan community in San Antonio, as well as some local activist groups, organized searches for the missing girl throughout 2022. But the racist allegations, once hidden behind the screen, started to manifest themselves physically. People would show up at these searches and hurl vile racist allegations at Lena's family and their loved ones. Pamela Allen, the CEO of advocate group Eagles Flight Advocacy and Outreach, helped organize many of those searches. Over time, she would become a representative for the Khil family, speaking to press outlets in an attempt to raise awareness for Lena's case. But after these threats began to manifest themselves, Allen called off the searches, later telling KENS5, "We have people that are stalking us that go on these searches, that film us, take pictures of us, and come up with different stories. We just don't want to do those types of searches anymore." She would go on to describe the root cause of this harassment, which, in my opinion, is nothing shy of racism, directed at someone who should be celebrated by Americans. Or, as she put it, more eloquently than I ever could, things directed at them because they're Afghani and because they're Muslim. That's harsh. Lena's father assisted our military forces when we were in Afghanistan. We brought him over here to make sure his family is safe. Then this happens. More after the break. year after Lena's disappearance, her family would receive a tip that she had been seen alive in Oklahoma. This provided hope that she might someday return home, but that tip remains unconfirmed many months later. Police have continued to keep the public informed via occasional update, but very few of them contain anything substantial. Per SAPD Police Chief William McManus, who spoke to Univision 41, "We are still unfortunately in the dark in this case. We interviewed all the people who live in that apartment complex. Plus, we've talked to all the people who live in 2 other apartment complexes on one side of that place." Over time, Lena's family has begun to express disappointment with law enforcement, claiming as soon as April 2023 that no new information was being shared with them. That same month, Riaz and his wife would agree to take polygraph tests in order to hopefully clear themselves as suspects, and would also begin to publicly call for new investigators to take over the case, a call that was soundly rejected by SAPD. The family has since begun working with other outside organizations, including the aforementioned Eagles Flight Advocacy and Outreach, who helped organize searches and public events. As I brought up earlier as well, they also began working with Project Absentis, a local organization headed by a retired FBI agent, who began digging into the investigative meat of the case. During their digging, Project Absentis discovered that a resident at the apartment complex Lena lived at with her family had been arrested in September 2022, less than a year after her disappearance, for possessing child abuse material with the intent to distribute. This individual was not named by the organization because he was not charged with any wrongdoing in Lena's case, but they stated that this was someone known to Lena's family. For that reason, they remain one of the most likely leads known to the public. On the 2-year mark of the case, in December 2023, the family would again begin pressing the public for information, holding public events in the hopes of growing the spotlight on Lena's case.
There's a father's heart that longs to be filled with the laughter of his daughter.
As yet another year passes, the pain surrounding the disappearance of Lina Sardar Khil only swells for her parents and those like Pam Allen, helping fight for answers.
This is not a Christian or a Muslim event. This is a little girl who's missing. And we have to learn to support one another, no matter what our differences are.
Family friend Lawan Mongol, translating for Lena's father Riaz, expressing piercing grief felt by her mother, Lena, last seen at this Northwest Side apartment complex, playing outside.
And she cannot tolerate any further sadness. She is uncontrollable right now.
In April, Riaz took a polygraph to clear his name so investigators could focus their attention on other potential suspects. Mongol said he passed that test, while SAPD and the FBI continue digging for leads. Riaz says he feels like law enforcement is shutting him down from any updates.
They are not able to find a small baby. The question was that why you people are not giving me the answer, what is happening.
Despite the lack of answers right now, hope is kept alive by many that one day Lena will be found.
Riaz, I look forward to the day, honey, that we get to celebrate when she comes home.
In February 2024, SAPD conducted a search in northwest San Antonio, between Auburn Creek and the Helix Apartments at Wurzbach and Blumel, roughly half a mile from where Lena disappeared from. Residents of the region would describe seeing police out there with an unknown young man wearing a Bexar County jumpsuit, indicating that he was an inmate of the local jail. It was later learned that this young man had been detained for aggravated sexual acts involving a child, who reportedly lived at the same apartment complex at the time of Lena's disappearance. Over the next 2 days, police would conduct a thorough search of this wooded area, bringing out a backhoe, combing through a locked shed, and utilizing ground-penetrating radar. However, it appears like nothing substantial was learned during the search, with police later describing the information they had received as non-credible. Investigators seem to believe that the inmate had lied about having information in order to obtain extra phone privileges. Despite hope that this search might finally provide Lena's family with some resolution regarding her fate, that was the last known update in the case. To this day, Lena's family continues to struggle with her disappearance, with her father Riaz telling the San Antonio Express News in 2022, "How can anyone cut a piece of my heart?" Her mother, Zarmina, would tell Fox San Antonio that same year, "We are very sad you are not with us, and we want you back in our home and in our lives, and we are missing you, and we are trying our best to get you back home." Pamela Allen, the family's chosen representative, told ABC News on February 20th, 2022, what would have been Lena's 4th birthday. "Her light is missing from her family and community. Our continuous prayers that she will be back in the arms of those that love her." The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, or NCMEC, released an age-progressed image of Lena last March, showing what she would look like at 6 years old. At the time this episode comes out, in February 2025, her 7th birthday will be just days away, and she has now been missing nearly as long as she was with her family. While I recognize it is a long shot, I still hold out hope that she gets to celebrate it with her loved ones, a hope that I know they share. Just recently, the Khil family raised the reward for information leading to Lena's whereabouts to $280,000, most of which has been raised by them and the Afghan community in San Antonio. If you know anything, or think you may know anything, please reach out to the San Antonio Police Department at 210-207-7660. You can also reach out to San Antonio Crime Stoppers at 210-224-7867. or FBI San Antonio at 210-225-6741. You can also submit tips online at tips.fbi.gov or through your nearest American embassy or consulate. As of this episode's recording, the story of Lina Sardar Khil remains unresolved. Thank you all for listening to Unresolved. I have been your host, Micheal Whelan. Research, writing, and production for this podcast was handled by myself, as Unresolved is a fully independent production. The music you're hearing right now, the Unresolved theme song, was composed by Ailsa Traves. To learn more about this podcast, visit the Unresolved website at unresolved.me. That's unresolved.me. There you can follow along with a transcript for each episode, or learn how to support the show through PayPal or Patreon, the latter of which allows you to become a producer of the show, such as the following: Roberta Jansen, Sarah Moscaratolo, Ben Crocum, Scott Meesey, Marion Welsh, Jacinda Klass, Lauren Nicole, James Weiss, Alex Kalogaropoulos, Annie Broad, Crystal J, Kevin Tweedy, Stephen Diaz, Heather Fiddler, Anna T, Cece, Crystal Austin, Marcus Mitchell, and Tabitha Colvin. Thank you all for continuing to support this show, which is quickly approaching its 10th anniversary. I would really like to continue making the show a priority, so please try and support the show however you can, whether it be through Patreon or PayPal, or even by spreading the word. Share the podcast with those in your life who have an interest in true crime or mystery. Talk about it online, on forums like the True Crime Podcast subreddit, or on web sleuths, stuff like that. And if you can, head on over to Apple Podcast or Spotify, or wherever you're listening now, and leave the podcast a nice review. Help others find it through the algorithm. Thank you to those who do. Your support helps keep this a fully independent production and lets me focus on telling these stories without any greedy businessmen or bosses telling me what to do. And Lord knows we need more independent voices in media in 2025, perhaps more than ever. Anyhow, let me step off my soapbox. Thank you all again. Until next time, I hope you all stay healthy, stay active, and stay safe. Take care.